Good day, rock stars. How you doing out there today? It is hot here today. Another hot one. We are on our commute home early because we got meetings this afternoon and I got some video work to do, so we're working from home for the rest of the day. And yeah, did a lot of hard work this morning. Power morning. Feels good to do hard work. Feel like you feel accomplished. You feel like you have a purpose. I gotta imagine if you sit around all day and don't do much, it might lead to a lot of depression. It's important to feel like you have a purpose. It's kind of why I like being an artist. Like, I might not have time to create a lot of art right now, but if I'm ever lucky enough to retire, I'll just retire to being an artist. I'll have more time to make my art. I freaking love it. That's, being an artist doesn't really pay the bills, so I'm not going to spend my time doing something that sucks up a lot of my time if it doesn't pay the bills. This podcast doesn't pay the bills, but it doesn't take up any extra time much, except for in the evenings when I process these videos. But recording it on my commute, I gotta be driving anyway. I think I'm gonna sell my house in the city and move out to the county somewhere. I need more land. And my next property, I'm gonna spend a good amount of time looking for and thinking about, because I'm probably going to settle down at that next property for a good long time. I'd want it to be what I want. So I need some space. I need some land, because aside from my house, I want a studio to paint and do my artwork. And we'll have it'll be like a barn or something, some sort of old barn type of structure. But, I want to be able to just go out there and throw paint around, Pollock the hell out of it. Jackson Pollock it all up. I'm not gonna be that abstract, but you get the idea. A place where I can just be messy with my art, have all my paintings already, all my paint out and ready to go, and to worry about cleaning up after myself. Really, it's just going to be a place for painting and sculpture and that kind of thing. We'll have some music equipment out there too. We'll have some jam sessions. That's the dream. And I'm shooting for that dream. I want it. They sell these, so I have this idea. I'm looking at properties. I've been looking at houses. It's a fun pastime. Looking at properties and seeing what they're worth and what's available, what you can get. And a lot of these finished houses we want a lot of bedrooms, because I have family that's going to want to visit. My wife has a very large family, so we're going to want a lot of guest rooms that will accommodate family members. And I'm looking at houses, that are 4 or 5 bedrooms, and it's hard to find a 5-bedroom house on a nice plot of land for under $500,000 at the very least. So they have these prefab Home Depot houses. And you can get them like between like about $20,000, maybe $40,000. I think about $20,000. You can get like a nice 2-bedroom little prefab house with a kitchen and a bathroom. Home Depot will come out and they'll install it probably for an extra 10 grand or something. So between 30 and 50,000, you can have a house, a small house put on your property that, you know, would be equal to something that would, as like a bed, as like an Airbnb, like a nice little small Airbnb, a little cottage. And I think that would be really cool. You know, if my parents came to visit, they could stay in the cottage together, have their own kitchen, their own little area, just us, a little separate from the main house. One thing my friend warned me against is if you got to look at the property you're buying and the rules that county has with building extra things on your property. You can't build like another house on your property. I think it would probably need an extra address. So I was thinking like a way to get around this baby is you build like a little covered walkway, make it look like it's just an extension of the main house, where in reality it's a whole separate Home Depot prefab house. You just connect it with, you know, a covered walkway or something, and it's an extension of the main house. For that matter, for my artist studio, my barn, I'd be interested in one of the Home Depot prefab things too, for that matter. You'd probably just go and buy like one of those large, you see them on the Home Depot lot, they're like sheds. Just buy like a giant, like buy the biggest Home Depot shed that you can find, and they'll just drag it out, put it on your property, boom. Level out the ground, just plop it right in place. As long as I run electricity out there, I can give myself heat and air conditioning. It would be nice to have running water to that for cleaning out paintbrushes and a sink and that kind of thing, but I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. I could, you know, just run the hose out there, connect it to something. No problem. No problem. Sounds nice. That's the dream. That's what I'm shooting for. You have to have dreams. You have to have goals. You have to keep them in your mind. You got to talk about them. I believe that, you know, talking about your plans helps towards manifesting them in real life. So here I am, talking about my dreams, trying to make them real. Dreaming of my Home Depot prefab artist studio. As far as my art goes, I did some very nice paintings back in the day when I did some paintings. I never really did enough paintings to narrow down on a style, but I was able to accomplish some very nice paintings in several different styles. Love to go back to painting. Love it. I've done a lot of, and I still do when I can, a lot of very detailed pencil drawing. I will use I have mechanical pencils. I have mechanical erasers. For a while, I was seeing how small I could actually draw. I would get like a 0.3 mechanical pencil, and I have different thicknesses of lead for my mechanical pencils. You know, the thicker the lead, the lighter the lines that you draw. A softer lead makes darker lines. So like a 2B is kind of in the middle. Like a 4H is on the lighter end, it's more denser. And then like a B or and the lower B's, I forget what's lower than B. Maybe it's F, like a 6B. I think a 6B is like really dark. So like yeah, it goes 6 on up to like 1, 0, and then the numbers start going up again as you get to the harder leads. 0 being in the middle, 6 being on the bottom of the softer leads, 6B being on the bottom of the softer leads, 6H being on the top of the harder leads. You look at it like this. And I would see how small I could draw. I would use a magnifying glass, and I would get so small I would be drawing almost between heartbeats. There's one drawing I did, it was 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches squared. I spent 8 hours just getting in there, drawing really tiny, and there was so much going on. Usually when I do my detailed, mechanical pencil drawings, there's so much going on. It takes you a really long time to look at it and absorb everything. My thought about it was, excuse me, swallowing hard candy. My thought about it was, even if you don't like the style, you're going to spend at least a moment or two looking at it, because it's going to take you a while to really just look at like what's going on in this picture. My drawings are always very personal. They're just sort of almost a stream of consciousness, like images would sort of, I'd start by doing some sort of abstract shapes, and then images would start to develop, and I'd try to stress them once I saw them developing, and it just turned into a stream of consciousness of feelings and thoughts and shapes, almost as if they're being channeled through me from some sort of outside spiritual source. So I never had the ability, I was never good at like doing commission pieces. I always like would promise I'd do some of the drawings. I was like, oh man, you should do a drawing for me and I'll pay you. And I was like, we'll see. I barely have time to work on what I'm working on for myself. And usually it's hard. Like, sometimes when I'm doing a drawing and I see an image of a horse developing, I can stress that and I'll draw a really nice horse. But if you asked me to draw a horse for you, it wouldn't come out the way I want it to, or you want it to, or even the way I drew it the last time. Maybe that's a reflection on my ability as an artist. I'm sure if I spend some time on it, I can draw a nice horse, but I have to like really be into what I'm working on to keep working on it. And if I'm not vibing with it, then I'm not going to draw. When I'm drawing, it's for fun and entertainment. And if it's not doing commission pieces, that makes it work. It takes the fun, takes the entertainment out of it for me. And I'd rather be doing something else, if that's the case. So I haven't done any artwork in a very long time. Honestly, since my son has been born, and he's about 20 months old now, I have had hardly any time to draw. And I have a bunch of pieces of artwork I'm kind of in the middle of and just haven't finished. Once he's kind of moved out of the phase of being a toddler and he can entertain himself a lot more and not destroy everything around him, I'll probably be able to bring my artwork back out and start getting into my artwork. I sit on the floor with him with crayons, and I try to teach him art. We play with crayons. It's funny. He'll be scribbling, and then I'll be scribbling with him, and then I'll draw like a face and a body. He'll look at it and be like, ah! Like he'll notice that it's a thing, and he'll make a gesture and go, ah! What's that? Ah! That's what he does. Looks at it and screams. Little baby scream. I've taken art classes my entire life growing up. Ever since I was like 5, when the teachers would ask you, or when someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said an artist. I've always loved drawing. Always. I took a lot of art classes growing up. And then I went to art college. I went to Maryland Institute College of Art, one of the better art colleges in the country. I think it was in the top 5 at the time. And I graduated from there. And I got into some crazy classes once I got to art college. I got into some classes regarding conceptual performance art, stuff like that. Things that never really were going to help me get a job once you get out of art college. It's hard to market yourself as an artist. When I was going to school at MICA, they were not teaching any business classes, really, or financial classes, or how to market yourself and how to sell yourself and manage being an independent artist. You'd walk out highly skilled and kind of whatever you wanted to do. But you wouldn't know what to do with your talent when you got out. A lot of artists are introspective and shy and have a hard time putting themselves out there. No problem making and creating. They have a hard time connecting with the general population. I can't remember if I talked about this on a previous podcast or not, but I find it really interesting subject matter, and I can speak more educatedly about it because this was my field of study. One of the most interesting classes I took while at MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art, was a class called Multidimensional Studio. And it was a conceptual art class. It was taught by a man named Jeremy Sigler. Shout out Jeremy Sigler. Great instructor. Great art teacher. I think he teaches in New York City now. If you're an artist in New York City and Jeremy Sigler's still teaching, take a class by him. Very, very intense teacher, but, puts his all into it. Puts his all into connecting with his students. Great example of a great instructor, I think. He wasn't. I think at the time in MICA there was teachers that either loved him or hated him, but I loved him. And of the instructors that didn't like him, I believe they weren't my favorite. He was good. He was really good. So we had this class called Multidimensional Studio, and Jeremy Sigler said, you have one project, one assignment for the whole year. That's it. But each of you is going to have to present this project in front of the class, and the class as a whole is going to critique your project for 3 hours. And we're like, whoa, that's crazy. How do you critique someone's piece of artwork as a group and talk about it for 3 hours? And I was always wondering how this would have gone down. So basically, every week there was 2 of us that were going to present. These are 6-hour classes at Micah. Someone would present their piece in the morning, someone would present their piece in the afternoon, or something like that. Which means someone had to go next week. So we all had to draw numbers from a hat. My number ended up someplace in the middle of the semester. Someone had to go the next week, and I forgot what their project was, but after seeing how a classroom of people sat around a piece of artwork and critiqued it for 3 hours, you can't just sit and be like, it's good or it's bad, or I like it or I don't like it. You have a conversation about it for 3 hours. So you talk about it in relation to life, in relation to art, the world of art, everything you know about art, in relation to the artist, maybe. Like, you pick this thing apart. As a class, I think we all grew a lot as individuals. And there was I sort of had this weird connection with a lot of the people in this class because we were going through this experience together, and we were having these deep theoretical conversations about art together on a weekly basis. Learned a lot about art, learned a lot about ourselves as artists and where we place ourselves in the art world. So after seeing that and how we critique something for 3 hours, I kind of had an idea for how I wanted to do my project. So I went out in the city, went out into Baltimore City, and I wanted to find somebody to be my sculpture. I wanted to find somebody in the city to bring into class and make them my piece of art. I didn't kind of want to go out and pick somebody. I wanted this person to sort of spiritually reveal themselves to me. So I mentally prepared myself for going out into the city. I fluffed my brain, and I went out for a walk into Baltimore. And I was walking through a park by the monument, and this lady on a bench asked me if I had a cigarette. At the time, I did smoke cigarettes. Nasty habit. But I said, yeah, sure. Gave her a cigarette, and I sat down, and I said, hey, can I talk to you for a little bit? She's like, yeah, sure. And I sat down next to her on a bench, and we chit-chatted, and I asked her a couple questions, and she asked me a couple questions, and I told her about my idea. And I said, I'm looking for someone that's going to be a sculpture. And I said, I'll pay you $10 an hour for each hour that you were there in class with me as my sculpture. So $30. This is back in 2003, 2004. I graduated Micah in 2004. Her name was Kristen Clappett, And she was a regular Baltimore person. Had been battling with homelessness in the past, but she had been pulling herself together, getting her life on track. Didn't know anything really about the art world. Never really, the only experience she had with art is her brother being an artist, and he just did paintings. None of this conceptual performance art. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it, but like the only criteria that Jeremy Sigler gave for the one project, like it just has to be the most conceptual thing you could think of. That was the only criteria for the piece of artwork that we had to create. It has to be the most conceptual thing you can think of. Sorry if I didn't mention that before. Maybe I did. So day of the class came up when it was my presentation, critique, and I was in the morning. And Kristen Clappett showed up, thank God. Paid her. And so we walk into class together, and we're sitting around big square tables, and the class is kind of sitting in a circle, just kind of looking at each other. She's sitting next to me, and the teacher does his morning introduction talk, and he goes, "Tom, it's your turn to present today. And I see you have a guest with you. What's the deal? What's up, man? What's the deal?" And I was like, "Thanks, Jeremy. This is everybody. Today's my presentation. This is Kristen Clappett. She is my sculpture. She's my presentation. Here she is. Go." And everyone kind of sat there for a moment in silence going, looking at each other like, whoa. And then they sort of started to get into it. And then the students started to talk, about her, about the concept of me bringing her in. I forget exactly what was said. I know there's a recording of it somewhere I have in my basement. It'd be really interesting to pull that out and listen to it. Maybe, maybe we'll clean that up and make that an episode. That would be cool. But at a certain point, everyone was sort of talking about her, and she's like looking at everybody going, "Huh? They're talking about me." And we noticed this as a class, and we said, "Whoa, wait a second. We're sort of being rude, talking about this person in front of them. Also, this is the only 3 hours we have to actually get to know this person, so maybe we should ask them questions about themselves to find out who they are. I mean, we could talk about them as a piece of art, but we need to find out who they are as a person too, and maybe that's also relevant, right?" So they started asking her questions, and they started asking her questions about, her life, got that down, and then asked her questions about how she felt about being here today, and she sort of gave a rundown of her history of knowledge of the art world, which, was evidently very limited after she explained it. And it became an important mission almost during that critique, that somehow we had to make this lady understand, because she seemed confused about she's like, "I'm honestly confused about what's going on here." I think she said that out loud. And she said, I don't understand what you guys are talking about, or I find this all very strange. And it became our sort of mission in our class that day, that it was important for us to make this woman understand how she was a sculpture, the importance of her being there for us. And I think the conclusion that was sort of brought about by this, it was sort of a hidden point that I ended up making with my sculpture that wasn't completely intended, but like, you go to art college and you get into these conceptualized classes, and Micah was a highly conceptualized art at the time. It probably still is. But at a certain point, you get so involved in the high art world that you're kind of just artists making art for other artists. And you've disconnected with the regular world around you. And if the only people that are going to understand your work are other artists, is that the right path to go down? Or are you just becoming an elitist group that's separated from the rest of the world, and at a certain point you start pumping out things that no one understands or connects with anymore? And that's kind of what a lot of us walked away with that day, I think. Definitely me, and I believe Sigler as well. And I'm also still learning things about, I think back to it sometimes, and I still learn something from that day as I learn things about life, as I progress through life. Man, at the end of the class, Jeremy Sigler looks at me and goes, "I'm really glad you did that. That was great. Thank you." And I believe I got an A in that class. It was a fun class, really fun. Learned a lot from all the critiques and all the students and all the projects. So, although I don't know exactly today how learning conceptual performance art and conceptual art is helping me earn money, but I'm still learning things about. I believe it's helped me a lot in my understanding of life in general. And that class in particular was worth it. So yeah, I believe that some of the teachers, though, like that class was about conceptual art, and like I was also taking classes like learning metal welding and the basics of wood shop and basics of clay, and the teachers in these classes tried to really work highly conceptualized concepts into these classes. But these were intro classes. I'm like, I'm just trying to learn the basics of welding. Like, and honestly, like in the welding class, I wish I had chosen something more base than a conceptualized project, because it ended up hurting what I ended up producing, because I was still learning the basics of the materials. So yeah, suggestion to other teachers at Micah who are teaching intro classes on how to work certain materials, save the conceptualization for the advanced. Let's have the students really learn about what they can do with the materials and explore that. Anyway, it's my experience about art and my dreams for a nice space for myself in the future to create my art. Who knows? There's probably a lot of ways that I've used my knowledge of conceptual art and sort of Fluxus performance art. Look at the Fluxus movement. It's kind of an interesting rabbit hole in art to dive into. There might be ways I'm using that in my daily life, the things I've learned through that I use in my job, help me earn money. Maybe it's made me a more outgoing person. Maybe it's made me look at life in a different way. Everything happens for a reason. The course you choose to take in life and the courses you choose to take in college all end up dictating the pathway the rest of your life takes. Everything happens for a reason. So make sure the choices that you do make have some heart to them. Whether or not they seem practical, at least have them have some sort of passion. I'd have passion in everything you do. One of my favorite quotes, and I've said it before, the artist is not a special kind of man, each man's a special kind of artist. Or the artist is not a special kind of person, each person is a special kind of artist. Whatever you do in life, that's your craft. So, be passionate in what you do, be creative, and know that everything has a purpose, and that you have a purpose. All right, that's it for me today, rock stars. I love you. Rock and roll. Peace.